Bless up to everybody, and thanks for passing through again, man. Good day to everybody. People, my apology for the people that look out for the morning instead of earlier this morning. But guess what? Did some driving yesterday, and I'm telling you, when I came in, man, that body just fling me right down in the bed and just said, look, just go sleep. So I never really wake up back in the early in the morning with that energy for do any video. But guess what? I'm there this afternoon, and I'm ready to chop my opinion. And look, the Reggae Girlz, missing Greenwood actually didn't really give much insight of what is going on within his club career as well. Look, the sporting director, Benetia, did a radio interview also with a local station in Marseille as well. Didn't really give much on that as well. Look, Ravel Morrison, what's the future for Ravel Morrison within the Reggae Boy squad? And also the new sensation. Yes, I would say the new sensation. Look, any young player, coming out are in the academy of the Ajax system, getting those awards. Jinairo Thomas, look, didn't knew much about that player as well. I'm going to play a video clip. You guys who didn't really know or seen any video clip of Jinairo, I will bring some video clip as well that I found on YouTube. And also look, some players that also got missing. Look, I don't know. 20 plus players from local league in Jamaica are in the 60-man pool. I was shocked yesterday in the morning when I saw that list, and I was like, wow. And so I actually can name a full squad of JPL players going to that Gold Cup with the amount of JPL players are in that 60-man pool. But I mean, that's that coming up in the video, people. Right after this I will get into it. Let's get into it, man. The Reggae Girlz, June the 3rd, we will play away to the US Women's National Team, and you will say, look, another big game under the belt for the Reggae Girlz, another fruitful force game. You will say, look, it's the number one team in the world that we will play, and it's not going to be an easy game. It won't be an easy game. Look, I don't even remember if we have ever beat this US Women's National Team. Look, they lost 2 in their last 3. Japan beat them in the She Believe Cup. They play Brazil in a 2-game series, friendly game. They beat Brazil, the first time, and then the second time, Brazil beat them. So they coming into this game with 1 win in the last 3 games, and you can't say anything about that, compare with Japan and Brazil. As much as we knocked out Brazil out of the last record group stage, it's a different team. This team is without our Tyreece woman, even though she didn't even get any goals in that game as well. But the impact of Khadija Bonisha on the pitch is massive. But no Bonisha again and again, and I'm love to see what will Seria A bring to the table. Someone that who scored loads of goals in the women championship this season, coming off a tally of around 17 goals, I think, for Newcastle, women team. So she will be a lot. She missed the last sets of games, I think, the next tour where we got beaten, versus Mexico. Kayla McKenna, is not so much of impressive, but trying to get back her groove as well. Look, you will say then Denisha Blackwood. Yeah, Denisha Blackwood have always been that bright spark for us. Can this defensive line, hold up against this US Women's National Team? But talking about this US Women's National Team, they have 17 players that's coming from the NWSL. The other 7 players, because they name a 24 women's squad. The 7 other players are coming from Europe, and if you look at their front line, I was looking through the front line. I didn't really know much of those players, and they named 2 uncapped players in that squad as well. If that girl go on to play, I think she played for Orlando Pride. She will be the oldest, she will be the oldest debutant to ever feature in a US Women's National Team game. And look, and if you look at it, 4 out of the 7 strikers that they name, the forward players that they name in that squad are 22 and younger, 22 years and younger. So it's a young front line. But look, these players, would have gone on, under a lot of, development. The women's game is big in the US, so look, you can't really take note from that. But I mean, hope the girls can bring, the A game. Hope them can bring a competitive atmosphere to the US team. But again, they go into a dark hole of a city, a state where is either the US men's national team or the US women's national team. They don't really lose game in that city as well. You see what happened when the men's team went there the last time? We got trash, so that's it, for the game that's coming up. And then we will travel away, to play, the Three Lions women team, England. I think that game will play in Leicester City or thing somewhere right there. But again, Mason Greenwood, discussed his club future as well. Benatia, the sporting director, the ex Marseille player, the ex Morocco player, discuss is Mason Greenwood club future. And this is what Mason Greenwood have to say. And then that finished, and I will tell you what Benatia said in a radio interview that he did early this morning in Marseille.
How do you see a future, and will you still be a Marseille player next season?
Yeah, I hope to be here next season and to.
Oui, j'espère être ici l'an prochain.
Yes, I hope to be here next year to play in the Champions League. Some of the players tell me that playing the Champions League here is really something special. Seeing all the matches in Gitchan closed, seeing the supporters there, that would really be on another level.
So Mason didn't really give much insight on whether he's going to stay. It's 100% guarantee that he will stay or he will leave the football club. But this is what Benatia said, after, because Mason Greenwood, that interview that you guys just watched, it was from the weekend, after the game that they played. I think they played they played Rennes, so after they finished with their last game of the season, that was the interview that he did, and it didn't really give much insight to, whether he's going to stay 100%. But look, he said his teammates told him that, look, it's a different atmosphere playing for Marseille in the Champions League. So hopefully, I think he will definitely be there, look, on a long-term contract. But what Benetta said, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking twice, that Mason Greenwood might not be at Marseille next season if the right offer come through the door. And this is what Benatia have to say. Look, Benatia said, we have an economic, reality. If we receive an offer out of nowhere, we will sit down and decide. But we don't want to part ways with a player who had a season like that. Mason Greenwood have a tremendous season, and you gonna want to say, look, Greenwood and Rabiot are two players who have not missed a single training session this season. It says a lot about their professionalism and their healthy lifestyle. So Mason and Rabiot never missed a training session this season, and that says a lot of their player. That look, these players are always available for their club team throughout the entire campaign. So look, they needed those two players, and those two players showed up in every training session, and they were available for all of the games. So big up to Benatia, for sharing that insight. But again, didn't really give much, because let me just go back and read what he said. We have an economic reality. If we receive an offer out of nowhere, we will sit down and decide. But we don't want to part ways with a player who had a season like that. So if probably 80 million, 90 million come to the door, they will definitely accept it, and Mason Greenwood will find himself with a new club in the near future. So hopefully, I would love him to stay. I would love him to play Champions League football, for the Marseille fans. They just start to get in love with him, once more again, which they kind of fall out of love with Mason Greenwood for just a little touch of a moment. But no, they fall in love with him back again, and everything is okay within the Marseille camp. But look, Ravel Morrison is nowhere near the 60-man pool. What that says for Ravel. And look, I can't say not much, because a player that is going up in age, we know the attitude problem of Ravel. We don't know if it's because of that, but why Ravel didn't get called up in the Gold Cup 60-man preliminary roster, I don't know. But I can't even blame them, and I can't even beat down too much door and say, look, he should be in or he should be out. It's just one of those decisions that look, the quality that him have, yes, he have very good quality. A lot of those players that are in the squad, they are not better than Ravel, especially in that midfield. And if you ask me, if they could have taken Ravel, of course, Steve McLaren could have picked Ravel. That would have been a big boost, for the national team. But who knows what's going on behind the scene? What if Ravel, have a lot of issues that he need to clear up, things that he need to take care of, personal issue that look, he's just not going to have the time, to be to try to put his team this summer for the Gold Cup. And we have to, look into things and look at it, and like I said, maybe it's on the player side or maybe it is on the coaching staff side where they just look, moving forward, we're just not going to pick him. And look, that's it for Ravel. And if you ask me, he's not in the Gold Cup squad. If he cannot make a 60-man pool with 24 Jamaican Premier League players in that squad, then what does that say what him moving forward? I think his Reggae Boy career is over. I think so, as less he can go to a club where he can showcase himself at a very good level. Yeah, and then they would have to look at him different and like, he's beating down the door at a higher level. I don't know, but let's see what's going on. But for me, I think his Reggae Boy career, his Reggae Boy future that's where the line draw, and I think that's it for him. I think the coaching staff probably bypassing with him, moving forward from Ravel Morrison and looking to younger players. And if that's the problem, and if that's the case, I have no issue with that. But so two players that really excited to see Jinairo and Tyreece Campbell for Charlton Athletic and the Ajax system. Jinairo is a very good player. What I've seen video clips and how I watch videos, listen to the coaching staff speak highly about him. He played in some prestige youth tournaments across in Europe as well, played against some very tough youth academies in the world. Ajax have one of the best youth system in the world as well. Ajax is the best youth system in Netherlands as well. So many, great midfielders came out through that system as well. So we are wonder if this one is a gem, will be that wonder kid in the near future. Someone that who is 18, someone that can play as one of the defender in a 3-man backline, someone that can play as a 6, someone that can play as a 8. He's a new modern type of number 6. We don't develop these players every day in Jamaica, and for us to can get our and one of these players in the Ajax system, that says a lot, and that says a lot about the player as well that want to start his international career. What father is, what I think Nigerian, mother is Jamaican. Could represent any different country, Netherlands, Nigeria, I think Nigeria, and the Reggae Boys as well. He chose Reggae Boys. He's on the list. That excite me a lot. Yeah, and looking at some of his video footage that I found online, his close touch control is very good. Look at how he position his body when he's receiving the football. Look at how his footwork of try to beat 2-3 defenders at the same time. So he is a technical player. He can give everything. He's a complete midfielder. And if you ask me, if we have the opportunity to get that 18-year-old in the system, we should pick him immediately, cap him and groom him, because this player can be the next Frankie de Jong. You don't know what can happen in football in the next 2 to 5 years from now. And if you look at even Tyreece Campbell, thank God to Dixon transfer from Arnett Garden to Charlton Athletic, that I get the privilege to watch Charlton Athletic day in and day out because of Kaim Dixon. And I saw Tyreece Campbell and I look, this player is a player that we also want in our ranks as well. Someone that who is fearless, who don't scare to dribble, someone that who like to run at people. Then another speedy player just like Cephas. I heard people saying he might be better than Cephas, but at this moment I don't think he's right there, are better than Cephas. He's close, but don't think he's better than Cephas, and that's my fair assessment on both players. But he's quick, he's fearless, and he's there. He can beat any defender 1v1 with his pace and with his skills as well. And also the attitude of getting balls square into the box, the attitude of getting shots off the goal, this player can do all of that, and he can bring the competition, to Leon Bailey and Demar Gray, and he's a young player, and this is what I'm saying. Get the squad younger and get more younger player coming through the squad, so we can be a little more athletic in our gameplay and in our system, and the game will play a lot more quicker, and he will be a lot more hungrier. Yeah, he will be hungry to showcase his talent that he can do this at the highest level. So look, Jinairo and also Tyreece, these players are very good, and I'm happy especially to have a midfielder like Jinairo in our team. Can pick, a Jinairo, that says a lot about that. Look, he's ready and he's available to play for the Reggae Boys. But moving forward again, if you ask me about Steve McLaren and the whole system of the Reggae Boys team and the whole 60-man pool, I'm happy. No, could have picked a lot more players in it, because even when I look at it, what Corberg, Romaro Williams just coming off an injury. Even your coach said that he did a surgery or something like that. Yeah, why Corberg is still in the team, I don't know, and I don't understand, why we have, 24 players from the Jamaican Premier League, when, you have quite a few players that's out there in the world that they are playing well. Look just like a Ravel, just like someone who that featured on my show, Sunderland, Michael Seaton, Flemo has scored goal. Alvas got into the 60-man pool. Alvas was a part of that little gang, that gang that they said was there when Tapa was at the coach, Tapa was at the helm at the Reggae Boy. Flemo scored goals last season, in the Serbian Super League. He's scoring goals now in the first year of football in UAE. So maybe we could have at least give some players some opportunity as well. But the 24 JPA players, me just cannot sit right with that. Like, what about the other players that played in North Macedonia? Players that playing in Slovakia. What about the player? You have a player that usually play for Cavalier, came through the ranks of the MLS Next Pro thing. I think it was at Chicago Fire. He was there with Romain Blake. I think what happened to even Romain Blake, who went to Armenia as well. The name I'm talking about is Lamar Rochester, a former Cavalier player playing in Spanish Liga MX Segunda. That's the second tier of Mexican football, playing for a team that Diego Armando Maradona used to coach, Doradas, a player that getting games, getting minutes, promising young player as well. What did I do with Sule Makala? This is not a true reflection of our best 60-man players that are a 60-man squad that, we could have picked. This is not a reflection of a 60-man pool of players that we could have picked. I think we can pick a little more higher quality than certain individuals that are in the squad. But I mean, let's see. I know a lot of those players will not feature, but with due respect and give people their credit for their season, their prolific season that they have in, even Paris, not really having the much of best season, but playing in Azerbaijan, at a very good level. There's a quality there, and I think as much as he's off farm, I don't think his farm dropped down to the Jamaican Premier League standard. But again, man, player in Slovakia, player in North Macedonia, playing in Mexico, players in Armenia, player in Serbia as well. So we have quite a few players around that at least could have featured in the squad more than some of these careless, like a Sule Makala. What we still do with Sule Makala, even if you pick 24 players from the Jamaican Premier League. What happened to Fitzroy Cummins? One of the best, he's probably the best centre half, when he's playing and is there in the Jamaican Premier League, that he deserved to be in the squad, and he's not even in the squad. So I would just stop. It's just confusing at times. But one thing though I can give the 60-man pool is that young players are coming through. We see some new names, you understand? But again, let's see what the future holds. I think a few days from now, the Unity Cup squad will name, and then hell broke loose again in the Reggae Boy space. But people, that's it, man. Thanks for watching. This is Nicardo Media House. I'm out.